namaste, guys. I am Dr. Anushruti and I'm back with an amazing episode. Well, we all talk about physical health, mental health, but when was the last time you had a discussion about emotional health? Well, wait, do you guys even know what is an emotional health? Do you guys even know that are you emotionally healthy? Well, to answer all these questions today on board, I have Dr. Karthik Ramanan, aka Dr. K. Well, he is a naturopathic doctor and an emotional health expert. And today I have him on board with me to discuss all about your emotional health. So why would we miss this chance to speak to him directly when he is in front of us? Hello, Dr. K. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. How are you?
I am good. I really want to know what exactly do you mean by being emotionally healthy? What is the emotional health we are talking about?
Absolutely. So, emotional health is a person's ability to identify, process, and act upon feelings in a certain situation and over the course of time. So, identify how you're feeling, process how you're feeling, and act upon how you're feeling in an appropriate way. Because sometimes, we have those moments where, let's say, we are our rope is thin, right? We have a lot of stressors going on, and those are the times that it's easier for us to be hard on ourselves, maybe snap at somebody else, and those are not things that are going to help us move forward into the person that we want to be. And so, when we can master our emotional health, we are mastering two elements of it, really our emotional intelligence, self-awareness, also awareness of the people around us so that we can communicate in a way that they understand and that they receive it. And then also emotional resilience so that when life inevitably throws the curveballs at us, when life inevitably becomes challenging, that we are able to respond in the best possible way.
That is so great. So, well, do you think that someone's mental and physical health is subject to risk if one's emotional health is not taken care of?
Absolutely. I mean, it all ties together, right? We're not isolated body systems. The kidneys and liver have a connection, right? The gut and the brain have a connection. It's all interconnected. And so, one of the main tenet that I teach is what I call the 5 pillars of emotional health. So, number one, your personal psychology. So, your ability to understand yourself, your emotional intelligence, your belief systems, the lens through which you see the world, right? The stories that you have about yourself, about the world around you, all of those factor in, as well as history of trauma, right? Both individually and sometimes family trauma or societal trauma. So all of those things factor into how we think, act, and feel. Number two, our relationships. May have heard the saying, you're the average of the 5 people and ideas that you spend the most time with, right? We literally become our environment. So if we have people in our immediate space that we spend a lot of time with who are, let's say, uh, negative victim mentality, things along those lines, it's very hard for us to be in a very emotionally healthy place. Now, some people, let's say friends that are that way, we can part ways. Um, Family is a little bit harder, right? And there are different approaches for that. 'Cause can't cut family out of your life entirely, right? And so, but there are definitely ways to elevate ourselves so that we make it safe for other people around us to become emotionally healthy as well. So, number two, relationships. Number three, nutrition. What does nutrition have to do with emotional health? Everything. 90 to 95% of the neurotransmitters that regulate how we think, act, and feel are generated by the bacteria in our gut, not even by our own brains, by our own body. And so when we eat foods that foster the best gut bacteria composition, our gut microbiome, that allows us to generate the appropriate amounts of serotonin, dopamine, GABA, all these other neurotransmitters that are intricately connected to how we feel. So something that I came across, and really the gut microbiome research is fairly it's not new, but the strides in it have happened, largely in the last 5 to 6 years. And so there's a lot of new exciting research that's coming out here. One fascinating thing that I learned is one of those things I'm sure for you as well. We study this stuff, we know this stuff, but every so often you come across some research that just blows your mind still, right? And for me, one of them was you have the vagus nerve, right, which innervates our lungs, or heart, or our gut, digestion, all of these things, these autonomic functions, life critical functions. And yet the vagus nerve fibers, 90% of them don't fire from the brain to the gut. 90% of the fibers fire from the gut to the brain. Only 10% is from brain down, which is fascinating to me. So there's so much information, there's so much power to improving our emotional health by addressing our gut health. So that's number 3, nutrition. Number 4, sleep. It's the first thing to go when we're busy and we're high achieving individuals or got a lot going on in life. Like, oh, I'll take it out of my sleep budget. You can do that for the short term, but as somebody myself who sacrificed sleep for many years for the sake of education, for the sake of my career, all of those things, the bill comes due one day. And the reality is that our long-term brain health is so deeply tied to our sleep patterns throughout our lifetime. We're generally sleeping 1/3 of our life. You would think that if this was an unnecessary function, that it would have been selected out, evolutionarily speaking. But the reality is that sleep is incredibly important for processing the day's events, committing things to long-term memory, for literally detoxifying the brain at night. So sleep is powerful. And we've all had that feeling, when we are sleep deprived, and then maybe we're hopped up on coffee the next morning, we might feel less emotionally resilient. We might be a little more snappy, right? Sleep is very important. And number 5, body movement. Motion dictates emotion. It's not necessarily just exercise. If you study the blue zones, which is research for looking at the longest lived populations on Earth, what are some of the characteristics that they have? One of them is that they don't necessarily exercise, but they are in constant low grade motion. Their bodies are always in motion during the day. Maybe they're walking to the grocery store. Maybe they're taking the bike to work, or whatever it might be, or just the natural nature of their job allows them to be in motion quite a bit. My previous career, and actually technically even right now, a lot of it is spent either in a chair in front of a client or behind a desk. My previous career entirely behind a desk, and so that stationary element, we need to make sure that we get up and move every so often, if not create more movement patterns in our day-to-day life. So psychology, relationships, nutrition, sleep, body movement. And so a lot of those relate to our physical health as well. And so we're an interconnected being, and we can elevate all of those things by addressing each pillar.
Beautifully explained. Also, okay, now we have come across the fact that we have two kinds of people, introverts and extroverts. Now, for being emotionally healthy, what do you think is, the nicer way to approach life? As in, we have a set of people, who are vocal about their thoughts, who just know how to let their thoughts be described to other persons. For example, if someone is angry, if someone is not in a good mood, he or she will snap on the other person, will shout, will tell. On the other hand, we have some set of people who do not do all these stuff. What they do is they keep their thoughts inside them, within them. So, what do you think is the better way to live life for being emotionally healthy? To be
There's
vocal about
definitely
your
a
thoughts, and or to be, keeping your thoughts to
keeping them
yourself?
inside. Yeah. Uh, Somewhere in between. Um, because on the two extremes of it, you have the people who and this was formerly me, by the way, bottling it up, not talking about it. Maybe there's a cultural element to it. I don't know. But either way, when we hold it all inside, if it's not properly processed, it doesn't go away. Right. And so that could mean, working with a therapist. That could mean um, journaling. It could mean whatever it is that you need to go through in order to really process not just recent events or I had a rough day, but what are the past events that lead us to analyze the present situation as it is rather than seeing it through a different lens. On the flip side of it, you have people that basically think out loud, right? They speak before they think. And sometimes that can be extremely painful because the person on the other end takes your word as what you mean, when in reality, that person's just thinking out loud, somewhere in between, right? So one of the concepts that I teach is one of it's called amygdala hijack, right? And so the amygdala and the limbic system are parts of our brain that uh, are shared with various other animals, and it controls. The amygdala is our fear center, our emotional center, and the hippocampus is right associated with it. And one of its functions is to maintain a category, a library of threats. So let's say we are having we're crossing the street, and all of a sudden, we don't see it, but a car comes screeching by. So what do? We just jump back immediately. We don't think about it. We just jump back. And then we realize what happened, right? So that's the amygdala recognizing, hey, this is a threat. Hippocampus, have we seen this before? Yes, that's a threat. Okay, let's take over and move back. If something is not considered a threat, then our frontal cortex, which is our rational thought, personality, all those things, the things that make us very human, right? That takes over, and that's usually where we're operating from. So what happens is that if we are in a calm state, we can operate from our frontal cortex and we can think rationally and operate rationally. Uh, However, when we get a signal, so sight, sound, it gets routed to both places: frontal cortex, which operates a little more slowly and rationally, and the amygdala, which operates much more quickly and more emotionally. So if the amygdala says, hey, hippocampus, have we seen this before? Hippocampus says, no, we haven't. Okay, it's not a threat. Then frontal cortex, continue. But if the hippocampus says, we have seen this threat before, then we act emotionally, and it actually hijacks the signaling to our frontal cortex, and we cannot think rationally. That's why when we're angry, or we have a friend or family member that's angry, and you try to explain to them, it doesn't work, right? You have to let the person calm down. We have to let ourselves calm down when we're in those situations. That's not the time to talk to people, right? When you're angry, remember what I said: identify, process, and act. If you can identify in the moment, wait a second, I've been triggered, I'm angry. This is why. I know why, but I'm going to mitigate the damage. I'm not going to speak my mind here, because whatever I say is probably not even the truth. It's just my mind processing different possibilities. So once the amygdala hijack has settled, which takes most people around 20 minutes, but everybody's a little bit different. So that's where the introspection and self-awareness comes in. Then we can come back to that person and say, okay, I want to talk about this. So you do need some balance, right? You need to be able to talk about things, not bottle them up. You also don't want to talk about them from a purely emotional state, especially if it's, let's say, you know, somebody you're in a relationship with, or a friend or family member or colleague. You want to be able to process what you're going through so that you can speak rationally.
Well, this I understood that what the approach you are telling about, and I believe is going to, work wonders for people who are listening to me out there, because balance is the key. And once you get to know how to maintain balance in life about everything, your life is sorted at that point. Well, I want to know, Dr. K, about signs of being emotionally unhealthy. Now, coming to this, I know emotionally unhealthy at this point of the episode, or everyone, all the people who are listening and watching this episode would think about signs as in crying, being angry, which we say anger issues, or shouting. But what are the real signs which are somehow, I would say, just ignored by people of being emotionally unhealthy or unfit?
Yeah, great question. And I love that you also brought up, anger, crying, things like that. Um, Fundamentally, like, so here's something that I get often. This perception that emotional health is the ability to withstand anything that comes our way and be unaffected by it all. That's absolutely not what it is. What it is the, again, identify, process, and act, right? So, what you want to be able to do is get yourself to a place where you can feel what you're feeling and process what you're feeling. And if that means being angry, be angry. Don't take it out on other people. If that means crying, you can cry, right? What being emotionally healthy does is it reduces the length of time that you're thrown off your game, and it reduces the severity, right? So instead of being, let's say somebody says something to you at work, and instead of being completely upset for the entire day, maybe into the next day, now that shrinks to 2 hours, 1 hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, right? And then the intensity shrinks too. So instead of being absolutely furious, you're a little mad or maybe annoyed, right? And you can process that and say, okay, why am I being triggered? Oh, I know what it is. This person actually didn't know what they were doing. I have this story and it pushed the button. That one's on me. Or it could be, no, I'm pretty sure that's probably not going to be a good way for that person to talk to other people. You bring that up. So it's not necessarily those symptoms, so to speak, that are a problem. It's when they get out of control. So to really know about emotionally healthy, I think you can look at it from five of the human needs, and there's various models for human needs. Obviously, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the probably best known one. The one I like to think about with my clients is number one, your stability. We need stability in life. We need to know that we have food, that we have our housing, that we have our transportation, that we have our job, that we have our family and friends that we can rely on. And when those things are not present or not there at the level that we need them to be, that can cause stress and that can cause us to be less emotionally healthy. Number two, we also need some excitement in our life, because if every day is the same as the one before it, we have nothing to look forward to. We have no variety is the spice of life, right? So if you feel that every day is almost the same as the one before it, or if you catch yourself scrolling on TikTok for 3 hours rather than focusing on something that will help you grow, as an example, that could be a sign that we're a little bit emotionally healthy. You want to be able to create enough excitement in your life. Now, if you get too much excitement, then you don't have stability to balance, right? So there's and everybody's a little bit different. You got to find that sweet spot for yourself. Number three, human connection, love, right? We need that. We need people in our lives. We're a social species. We're not lone wolves. It doesn't work that way, right? And introvert or extrovert, by the way, right? Introvert, extrovert, the way that I like to think about it is less about, do you like being around people or not like being around? It's more about, because you can have a lot of people that are really outgoing introverts, or people that like extroverts that like time with themselves as well. And what I think is a better way to look at it is under what circumstances do you regain your energy? So if you regain your energy by having quiet time with yourself, that's introvert. If you regain your energy by having engaging conversations and experiences with other people, extrovert. Um, but it still always has to be the right people. You know, if you have the energy vampires, I don't care if you're an extrovert, you don't want to be around them, right? So it's we need human connection, we need quality connection. Number three. So if we don't have those things, that could be a sign that we're emotionally unhealthy. Um, Continuing on, if we're not growing, we're dying. It's the same for uh, human beings, animals, plants, businesses, right? We always have to be in a state of growth. I think at least in the U.S., right, a lot of the commercials, things like that, are all geared around, be happy, right? You hear that advice a lot. Just do what makes you happy. And I say, if you do what makes you happy, that's only going to make you comfortable. And at some point, when you become too comfortable, it stops being fulfilling. I have a client who's in his mid 50s, very successful in his career. And he tells me I've made my life too easy and it's not fun. It's like I need to figure out how to make make things a little more challenging so that I can grow. So that's exactly right. So don't do what makes you happy. No, do what makes you grow. Because when you grow, you're going to feel satisfaction, happiness. You're going to feel excitement because you're learning something new, right? You're going to feel connection because a lot of times when we're growing in certain ways, we're connecting with different people in order to do so. So, one of the things for me, as an example, is over the next few years, I want to get my private pilot's license, not because I want to, fly commercially, but just because I'm interested. It'd be fun to do it. In doing so, I'll meet a whole lot of other people. So you get those connections that way. So growth is incredibly important. If you don't feel you're growing in life, there's nothing wrong with you. That's okay. We're actually wired to stay safe and not change, but it's not fulfilling. So find ways to grow. What are the things that you've always wanted to learn? And maybe a parent or somebody else told you, oh, there's no career in that, or there's no okay, well now you're going and doing your thing. Doesn't mean you can't go and learn that skill or that hobby for fun. So go for it, right? Grow. And then number five, so important, purpose. We all need a reason to be here. We all need a reason to live our lives. And if you feel a lack of purpose, that will drain your emotional health. Now, how does one find our purpose? There's a variety of ways to go about it. Sometimes purpose just smacks you in the face. So I'll give the short version of my story to give an example here. So previously, out of college, I actually worked on Wall Street for 8 years. And that was during the Great Recession. And during that, it was a very stressful time to be in the industry. And I found myself very successful in my career, but also lacking a sense of fulfillment inside. And I didn't know what that was. There was this purpose that I was missing. And my health started to deteriorate. I saw my sister after a 3-month span. And during that time, she had lost 30 pounds. Her acne had cleared up. She looked incredible. And I was at a rock bottom. And I said, okay, whatever you did, I'm going to do. And she tells me, oh, I've just been eating a whole food plant-based diet. I said, okay, show me how to do this. And so I just started changing the way I ate. And I started the process of losing 100 pounds. But in the process of that, people would come to me and ask me for advice on this and that. And I saw type 2 diabetes go away, hypertension, chronic migraines, all by people changing their food. And that's what got me thinking, oh man, I got to do this for my career. I found out about naturopathic medicine. I moved across the country, gave up everything that I had before. And in the process, also met the love of my life, and so got married. In the process of doing all that, I found purpose. My purpose in helping other people become emotionally healthy and ultimately find their purpose. Sometimes the greatest purpose we have comes from the pain that we've experienced. If you can take that pain and experience and transform it into serving others, therein lies the greatest purpose. So if you have stability, excitement, human connection, growth, and purpose, you'll be emotionally healthy. If any of those areas decline, those are areas to focus on, and so that you can improve your emotional health that way.
Beautifully explained. I would say this was one of the few episodes where we are not into the human body, we are not into the anatomy, but we still get to learn so much about ourselves and eventually making ourselves better in all the senses. And the way you just told about the approach towards life while having balance and keeping out the signs and noticing it, the red flags of your emotional health is, I feel, one of the biggest piece of advices anyone would get from this episode. Well, with this, we have come to an end of this episode. I would like to thank you, Dr. K, for taking out time from your schedule to speak to my audience. And this beautiful topic needs to be discussed and talked a lot more about, because I really feel that people ignore their emotional health. Also, because of this, the chain is moving on, the chain is growing, and no one is taking care of anyone's emotional health. This is something I told you earlier as well, is the need of the hour. Emotional health is the need of the hour. Thank you so much, Dr. K, for joining in. I hope you enjoyed it and had a great time with us here.
Absolutely. Had a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, this is your reminder to straighten your back, have a glass of water, and move. And also, a pro tip: take care of your emotional health and see the red flags in your emotional health. Your emotional health matters, and so does you. So, take care of yourself. We'll see you in the next episode. Till then, goodbye. Take care.